Okay, so good evening once again. We are going to look at a new topic. We are going to look at a new topic, and as I had said before, as I had asked you guys, I'd asked you guys to look at. Okay, let me pass this up. To look at at uh, the the context API. So okay, this should stop presenting in a moment. So I'd ask you guys to look at the context API. Let me share this slides with you so you can have a copy of them because they're online. Okay. Copy. So I've shared the slides in the chat so you can have a copy of the slides. And but for today's session, we don't have to worry because we won't be covering it's a new topic, but we'll be trying to encompass the previous lessons because the learning is continuous. So we learn a topic, then we continue the topic. Okay, so I'd ask you guys to look at the context API. And how many of you looked at the context API? Yeah. So I've shared a link to the official documentation of React context API. You can also have a look at it if you did look. But if you looked at it, you can of course interrupt me. Whereas I'm going to the session and ask questions about what you didn't understand. But basically, I'm going to look at the context API. Right? I can say the context API, but it's just, how can I say, it's a part of React, and usually they call it an API, but it's not an API. It's just how they refer to it. But it's you can say the context. It's a React context. Okay, so if you look at the previous documentation, they describe it. If you look at here, they will describe the context provides a way to pass data through. Okay, let me see the slide here. Okay, through the componentry. So the keyword is componentry and pass data without having to pass props down manually at every level. So in a way that's saying that we can pass data, and data is commonly set through the componentry without having to pass props, without doing what we call prop drilling. Okay, so we're going to look at that later on. So let me just back to my slides. So the same thing I said. So the context API is a component structure. Okay, it's a component structure which allows us to derive from which allows to share specific forms of data, like usually state across all levels of the application. It's aimed at solving the problem of prop drilling. We're going to look at prop drilling in a minute. In a minute or so, I'm going to show you maybe like a diagram of how prop drilling works and why we try to avoid it, because we don't necessarily need the context API if you're doing small applications. And if you continue reading the documentation, the part which at the bottom that they tell you want to use the context API. They say context is designed to share data, poetry, search, okay. So it's saying it's only allowed, it's only preferred, or it's advisable to use the context only when you have global data. And since you're gonna be building bigger applications, you could have different data which are global. That's why we are going to look at the context API, because next week we'll be expecting to start delivering on our GreenMy project. That's why we are looking at, okay, I think I didn't share the screen. Oh, I didn't share the screen. Okay. So sorry about that. As I was saying is, if you look through the documentation, just after the first page, the context API, the context, the first few words, the context, they show you that we're having context allows you to pass data through the component structure without having to pass props down manually at every level. So that's why we do context API. Then down here they tell you when to use context. I say context designed to share data that can be considered global for a tree of React components. So we're going to look at different types of global data, and I'm going to show you maybe examples of global data and how you can approach them. Because right now, for the small applications I've been doing, there is no global data. Each component is self sufficient. Okay, it does not require to get data from another component. They are all self-sufficient because the data is within the same component, and we can use simple props to access and pass data through those different components. Yeah, but when you continuously go ahead and look at the context API, we realize that we need to look at how we can share data between two components which are not parents. Okay, parents and child. That's why we need a context API. And let's go back a little bit to my slides. Okay, and let me share the link one more time to the slides. Those who have come in just right now, let me share the slides, the link to the slides. Okay, so why we need the context API is simply because can you see this here? It's simply because we want to avoid prop drilling, which is I want to look at prop drilling in a moment, and also want to share data or the state as a global variable or as a global data. We I call that one source of truth. That's why we need context API to have one source of truth, which is a storage. So the next step is what is prop drilling, because I was talking about prop drilling here and here, and most of you maybe don't know prop drilling. Prop, not pop, sorry about that, but prop drilling. So prop drilling, it's so prop drilling is the process to get data to the parts of React component tree. I'm going to say component tree in a moment, and that is like the process where you pass props from one thing to from each component to another component. We're going to see in a moment a diagram showing it better. Well, this was a bit kind of confusing with the language, with the grammar, but it's okay. We're going to look at that later. And we're asking why don't we use prop drilling? Prop drilling can work in some circumstances when you have a simple application, or when you have maybe a to-do app, quite simple. When you have we have a simple movies app as we did last time, very simple, you can use prop drilling. But when it comes to complex applications, we require one source of truth, or a storage, or a store, or what you call a single source of truth, okay, or an external store. And previously we used to use Redux. Actually, we still use Redux, but when we looked at when React context was introduced, we most part running out from using Redux, because Redux is complex and it just takes too much time to set up just Redux for a simple application. So we're going to look at context. It's going to be quite simple and straightforward, because it's just a few lines of setting up, and then you're done. Then of course this is prop drilling. You maybe assume this is the app, maybe this is the parent, or the app to TSX. Then you pass in to the maybe to another component. Maybe this is a form, the form, then you pass into that to the input, maybe the input, maybe to a button. So all this you are passing prop from here to here, here to here, here to here, only to reach the end. Okay, see, assuming this component, which is a green component, does not need the prop of color and size, but you have to pass, but since you are using prop drilling, you have to pass the prop through this component because it is the parent of this, of the purple component. So in a way, you are passing props from the app to the, maybe to the form, the input, maybe to another component. Okay, I'm gonna show it to you in actual code to understand better. But for now, you know that props, you pass props throughout different components. This is a parent, you pass to another parent, not to the child, then the child also has another child, making it a parent. Then this also has a child, making that a parent. So you are passing props, okay, from the parent to the child, not to the grandchild, to the great grandchild. So let me just say like that to make it kind of easier. So that's like prop drilling, and then we look at how the context API solves the problem of, I know why I'm saying prop drilling. It's supposed to be prop drilling. Why? Okay, it doesn't matter, but it's supposed to be prop drilling, cannot pop drilling. I know why I keep on writing the wrong spelling, but it's okay. So the context API removes the data from. Okay, so what it does, it removes the data from the parent and puts it outside. Okay, you're gonna see it in an image. Okay, so it removes the data that is going to be shared and makes it global and available for all components without having to pass props in to the components that don't use them. Okay, you're gonna see it in a moment. Okay, so this is the context API, how it works. Okay, so instead of having data from maybe from the root or from the app, you have data outside the component structure or the component tree. Maybe you have it in a component in a component store, okay, whatever you call it. There's a file which has the store, okay, and the store is simply the sequence of truth, okay, or like a file which contains all the changes, all the data, all the state, which is global. Okay, it contains all the states global here, and then components can simply subscribe, or they can consume the data. It's called consuming. So this becomes the provider which provides the data, and then it consumes. This is like a diagram showing how it works. Okay, but in actual terms, we have it in, like I'm gonna show you in a minute. Okay, so we have it in this way. Okay, I'm gonna show you this diagram explain later on, but let's first continue the diagram with slides. But we just know that we have a store which contains our data. Instead of having it passing it in props, we're having it in an external file. Okay, then we'll be passing and then all these components, we have access to this state. Okay, I know it's kind of confusing for those who are new to this, but those who have maybe tried it out before, they understand that this is how it works. But no, we're going to look at it and try to understand it way better. But know that instead of having props, we are having a context. And a note on this: we do not lose. We don't stop using props. No, we don't stop using props. We don't stop using state. We simply avoid using prop drilling, avoiding having a global, because we only need the context store to only have access to the global state, to maybe to some things like the theme, having access maybe to the login users, having access maybe to an articles if the articles are in a global state. So only data which is global. When you're having data which is maybe between two applications, between A and D, you don't need to have the context because that's redundancy. Because you can simply pass in props, just one step. Okay. So once you're having simple applications, you don't need the context. But once you have complex applications which have global data, that's when you need the context API. Okay, so let's move on the slides. And before we actually we begin the context, this I think which you should understand. So of course you need to understand the of hooks, because context can work with function with class-based components, but I think, and it's preferable, it's better to use it with hooks, because it makes the code less bloated and makes it very clean. That's like according to many of the guys who have used the context. But if you like complexity, you can use context with class-based components to still apply. But basically, for you to understand hooks better and use them comfortably, understanding of hooks is a must. You have to understand, maybe especially the use state hook, because that's like the core of the whole use context. So why we need use context. And of course, the next step is to understand how props structure works, how data flow works, just to understand why we need the context. The last one is understand how to use reducer hook, and the last one is just an addition, but you don't need to understand how to use reducer hook, because you can still work with context without I use reducer. But to make work more easier and work more fancier, we usually use reducer, because it cuts on our code and makes working with the context more smoother, okay, and more straightforward, rather than using use state. Because with the use reducer, you don't have to worry about the set state, don't worry about the like having different you can have like one function catering for maybe around like 15 types of different actions within the page, because when you're using use state, you have to account for each action. State here, okay. But we're going to look at it later on within our lessons. So now I'm going to show you the diagrams, okay. Let me just maybe look this a bit. Can I zoom it? So zooming in. Okay, it's not zooming in. But let me just pull up maybe the actual image. I think I have the image somewhere here. Okay. Yes, let me just pull up the image here. Hope you can see the image. Okay, so this is what we're going to maybe create. Okay, where is this? Sorry about that. This is what we're going to create. Okay, we're going to create a simple articles or blog app, like the one you did in JavaScript, but this time we're going to do it in React, and it has, in my case, I'm broken down into a bunch of different components. Maybe we have the app component, which is the root component. Then we are having the login page, we are having the form, we are having the article page, we are having the single article page. Then you are okay, I'm having this too. I'm not right here. It's okay. Then you're having the edit page, the edit article. So I'm having around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, around 5 components. But this is just a breakdown. But you can continue down and break it down to small components. Okay. So in my case, I'm having just around 5 components. But imagine at the GreenMind project, you'd be having only 5 components. You'd be having close maybe to 50 components. Okay. And that's why we be needing to use the use context, because we want to avoid crop drilling. We want to have more organized and more manageable data, okay, more manageable state. That's why instead of us passing, maybe for example, if you look at this diagram and understand we are having, if you look at most of the parts we're having, is logged in, 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 is logged in. We are passing is logged in throughout the whole application, because my application will be authenticated. You have to be authenticated to and authorized to be able to access some pages. Okay, for example, to access the edit page, you need to be what? You need to be logged in. To create an article, you need to be to be logged in. To sign up or login page, you need to first check, are you logged in, are you logged out? That's why it's logged in here. So all these are going to come up in a minute, and you're gonna see using things like a router, all the stuff which I've been learning ever since. And then of course I'm going to introduce something called Firebase later on today with a login page. All that will come in together and to play to create our application. But when you're using props, it can get a bit overwhelming because we have too much data to us to track, and you may forget to pass is logged in maybe to article page, and you think that okay, it's there in a single article, then you forget about it. That's why we need the context API. So next slide was me showing you the last slide showing how the context API works. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. So the context, okay, just bring up the actual image. This is, okay, so maybe just bring the image, the actual image. So this is how the context API works. Okay, the context API, you create a file called maybe auth context.ts or .js, then you create all the state within that context, that file. Okay, you're gonna see it in a moment. Then you create what we call a provider, which will be between your app. So usually I like putting it at the top, although here I don't want to put, but I prefer putting it at the top of the app. Okay, but in your case you can put it here on the app to still work the same way. So the data will be passed to the context provider. Still the data from maybe articles context will be passed to our context provider, and all the applications, all of them, the navbar, the login page, the form, this, they will all have access to the is logged in, set is logged in, articles, to the set articles. But the thing about what I like about context is the data is not automatically available there, because you can access it. Okay, I'm gonna say you can access it, but it's there, but you can access it. You choose to access it. Okay, it's not like it blurs the application. No, it's there, but you only access it when you want to access it. We're gonna see it in a moment. Okay, so let's just get into it. Okay, so to make things more faster and better, I'd already created something as an example. Take the bit up real quick here. As an example, let me show you an example which I was showing. Okay, so hopefully let's just remove this. Okay, so I got localhost 3000, localhost 3000. Okay, so this is a simple, quite simple. Okay, minus my mask. It's a simple page, although it's a bit ugly because I didn't put too much effort into creating it, but it's simple. It's like I have a button which I click on, it will change the theme. Okay, it will change the theme from, although it's not the dark theme, just changing the background of the color. You can do this in JavaScript. It's possible, but I want to see how we approach it and why it's kind of better this way. So if I click here, you can see it changes just the color. Okay, from black to white. Okay, and to visualize this better, we are going to have to install an extension on our Google Chrome or Firefox or whatever you want, whatever you're using. But since if you're using Google Chrome, I'm going to go ahead, head over to the tools. Okay, so I'm going to maybe share the link with you on Reactive Tools. So I think I'm supposed to cover Reactive Tools on their own, but I'm going to show it to you. But in our case, I'm going to head over to this the link I've shared with you guys. So to Reactive Tools. So Reactive Tools, then you can install the React Developer Tools extension. So this allows us to have a more externalized visualization of data through the application. I should have shown you this beforehand, but I think I was taken up with something. I forgot to show this to you. But in a way, because if you look at our if you right click and inspect, and you go to maybe because the slides here, you go to the console. There's no way you can see because the console only cares for what cares for the JavaScript. That's why we don't have too much to see the some that have to console the data out. But for us to realize data better, we are using the Reactive Tools. After installing Reactive Tools, just right click, inspect, and then you can head over to, in your case, if you don't see the Reactive Tools here, you just click on this double arrows, then you can see the profile, sorry, the components. Okay. For now, we're going to look at the components, but later on, we're going to look at the profiler. Okay. But for now, let's look at that at the components. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So when you just look at, if you click on the components, I think that changed because previously they did have the components profiler. I think 2018 did have, but now I think 2020 they introduced this components and they just changed it to components profiler. But now just know that it doesn't make a difference. Just click on the components tab, then you can see different components. For example, yes, if yes maybe because it looks like the elements. If you look at the elements, almost the same thing. Of course, this one's organized into what into React components. Since I have these components, I'm going to see my components later on. Okay, I'm having maybe the navbar, I'm having the logo theme, I'm having the add article page. Okay, I'm going to create this on later on, but you can see now if I click maybe on the navbar, there's nothing here. I say props, there's no props. It's rendered by app. It's using legacy root, which is okay, and I show me that the React version which is 17.0.2. Okay. Of course, if I click on maybe toggle theme, you can see if I click on navbar, there's nothing there. But toggle theme, I'm having props, then hooks. Okay, because I'm using hooks. If you're using the class components, they will show you state instead of hooks. I think so. In my hooks, I'm having the context. The context has a dark theme, has a set dark theme. These two variables, two variables. Yes, so the dark theme is just simply set state, then set you just pull up maybe the code. You can have a look at it. Where is it? This one. Yes. So you can see compared if I just maybe make it bigger here, you can see I'm having dark theme, then set dark theme. This is use state line 6. Okay, line 6 I'm using use state. Dark theme, set dark theme. So in my case here, if I look at back to my components, I can see if I click on toggle theme, I'm having dark theme, then set dark theme. These are all defined within my application. I'm going to show you how to do this. Okay. So of course, I click on maybe add article. I'm having nothing because I don't have any props or state. If I click maybe on the app, I'm having the same thing with the toggle. I'm having dark theme, then set dark theme. Okay, and these two. This applies the same thing. Applies if you're using use state. Doesn't make a difference. You still see the same things happening here and here. Okay, but for now I think enough of the explanations here and here. So we're going to get into it, and I'll explain what's the auth context, what's this auth. These are the things which are defined. And if you look through my application, I'll share this with you later on. If you look through my application, it's in my index here. Index, I'm having this auth context provider and team context provider. That's why you're seeing here I'm having team context provider, then of course an auth context provider. Then the context provider, I'm going to look at that later on, so it's okay. So let's just get into this. Okay, although this or just be testing out something, just make sure that everything works out nice and clean. Okay, so I'm maybe going to create our own version of this. Okay, but even better because this one I did it before, as trying testing it out, but we're going to do it our own version and way better than this. Okay, so I'm going to stop the server very quick. Here, stop the server, Ctrl C. Then of course I'll close this up. Okay, then of course I'll open up our usual React lessons repo. Okay, so let me just minimize everything here, make it a bit smaller. Honest, good. So this is our React repo that I've been using, and the same repo that if I open up, it's a React lessons repo, and of course, like always, you can do a git. Make sure that you have cleaned up your branch, then you can do a git pull to pull up the same work, okay, that we're going to be doing for today. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and let me see if here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just go and do a git. I think I have a clean. If I do a git status, I'm having a clean branch. Okay, so my branch is up to date and it's clean. Okay, there's nothing to comment. Everything is clean. So I can now go ahead and do a git checkout dash b. I'm going to create a branch. I'm going to call it introduction intro. I'll call it what? Intro to context. Okay, maybe it's API. Okay, good. Well, let's see first move branch. Oh, sorry about that. I think I need first check the branch which are. Then first git checkout cleaned, because I'm working on the cleaned boilerplate. Then yes, remove this branch. So I get git branch dash d. I want to do a code intro or something. Yeah, it's okay. I'm sure I want to delete it. Why don't I want to delete it? Let's just copy it here. So I'm going to update the branch because that ours based on a different branch which I don't want it to be based on. I want it based on the cleaned up boilerplate. That's why I'm going ahead. I'm going to create it one more time. Here, you can check out dash b intro to context API. I always want to base my applications from the cleaned up boilerplate because I want all my applications to be different. Okay. I know there's a better way of doing it using maybe Git based, but I'm just so lazy. I like this one. Like run with too many things in my head. That's why it's quite simple. Yeah. Simply let the branch because a new branch from the cleaned up boilerplate. Then enough with the git work. Now I've created a new branch called intro to context API. Okay, so with my branch now I can go ahead and run npm start. Okay, see if everything is working on point. It's working. Okay, so as it's pulling up the whole thing, I'm gonna check my app.tsx to see if there's issues, because I'm sure there should be an issue up here. The index there should be its root, of course public should also be root. So I'm sure that's something right there. I did change it. Yes, I did change it. So it's clean. Okay, so if it has opened up a localhost without a make always, you can see let us learn React. Of course, I'm going ahead and let's say this one. Okay, go ahead and make a change just to make sure that everything is working. Okay, inside my source, my app.tsx, I will say let us run React. I will say context API. Save this and check if it's working. Not this one. Let's just close one. Okay, let's close it. Then of course now you can see context API. Good, it works. Setup is okay. Usually I have issues with this setup every single time. One moment. Sorry about this. Check out something here. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and do something. Okay, because now I have the context API. Now let's try to remove this dark theme here, because we're going to create our own dark theme with our own. Okay, because now it should look this white. Okay, so let's first do the part where we did the dark theme. Okay, I can do the dark theme maybe on a single page, just like that, very simple, by simply maybe changing the color. Okay, and also adding a button. But I want us to learn the context API by applying the simple thing of changing the background color using the context API to the context. Okay, so I'm going to do, the first thing I do, of course, I'm going to create a folder called context. Okay, context. Okay, this folder will contain all my context. Okay, then after that, inside, because if you follow the documentation, the actual documentation from React context API here, it can get a bit challenging at first. When I was doing this, it can get a bit challenging because they give you too much information. They give you like things like linear they give you things like React create provider, type, consumer, all that. But what we need to know, we just need to know two things: they create context, the provider, and then they use context. These other things we need them, but for now we don't need to think too much of them. Okay, because we are looking for the easiest way out. Okay, it's about for us to use to understand the create context, the context provider, then the use context. We're gonna see it in a minute. Okay, so the first thing is, of course, if you read the documentation, they tell you how to approach it. Okay, so in my case, I'm going to create a file. I'm going to create maybe a ship theme context. Okay, that's like the standard of how you approach it. Okay, theme context. Okay, then of course we import React from React. So import React. To avoid a lot of repetition, I'm going to go ahead and use a plugin. Let me show the plugin one. I'm using a plugin called okay. A plugin called React. React's ES7 slash Redux slash GraphQL snippets. So it allows me to have snippets of every of React and ES6, and also it allows me to have like shortcuts which I can apply to create components really faster. Okay, I don't know why it's not scrolling down. Okay, yeah, so it allows me to for example, if you look at here, the shortcut for creating a functional component, which is like what is it, like IMR for import back from React, IMR import back from React component here, all that. Okay, it shows you different snippets. Okay, my market snippet which I always use is RAFCE. Okay, this RAFCE, this one just allows me to create an arrow function component. Okay, it's exported so like that. Okay, then of course I will change this to theme context provider. Okay, to avoid to save us time, I don't have to create the const import. I simply use a shortcut to have the whole thing down for me. Okay, and makes work easy. So it's okay. So inside my theme, let's first close this up. Okay, so inside my theme context file, okay, I'm going to create a function or a component called theme context provider. Okay, so this theme context provider is this provider which I showed you last time in the picture. This is this thing which is between here. Okay, up here. This, okay, this is a context provider. Okay, this is what we call the context provider. Okay, and this theme context provider, it takes it has a props. Of course, most of the components have props. Okay, takes in props. Okay, together. And okay, props. Of course, I'm using TypeScript. I've specify the type of props, but it's okay. Type of any, it's alright. So this theme context provider returns what we call the theme provider, okay, or the actual provider. Because this is just a name, okay. But what it returns is what we take into context and say it's what? It's a theme provider or the context provider. Okay, and for it to return, you first have to create the actual context. Okay, so as I'm saying, you create the context. So we first go ahead and import create context, okay, from React. Then we come ahead at the top, you can const, okay, then we can say I want to create a new context using the create context function, the functional method. Here's a function, the context create context function. So I say I want to create a theme context. Usually we have the same names, but the component has the theme provider has the provider end of it, and this theme is instead of it being theme context, yes, provider you have the string. So the theme context is just the actual context. Then the provider is the function or the component which allows us to access the theme context. Okay, we're gonna see it in a moment. Okay, so I say const theme context, I say equals to create context like that. And to avoid some issues here and here, with TypeScript I'll make sure it returns, it takes in any as one of its it takes in any as its parameter to avoid issues here and here. But if you're using if in some case you're using JavaScript, you don't need this any bit of it. Okay, so it will still work because JavaScript can ignore some type checking, but with TypeScript you have to type check. So the theme context, I'm saying create a context, then of course the create context simply it takes in a default value, so I'm passing in this any to avoid issues with when it comes to changing the data. Okay, so after the theme context provider, it will return, instead of returning some HTML or some JSX, it will return what we call the theme context dot provider. Okay, like that. Okay, and of course right away it's complaining, saying it's missing property value is missing, so I need to pass in the value here. Okay, so before I continue, remember the theme context provider. So you simply create a component called the context provider, then you create a constant or create a new context, then you return the theme or the context of provider. Okay, so and this context provider takes in a value, and there's a value here, and the value will be equating to some JavaScript. Okay, because remember when I put this the curly braces, I'm passing some JavaScript. Okay, and it's always complaining saying must. Okay, of course let me just put some strings here, okay, to avoid issues. Okay, so must, I could have done this, I think it still works the same way. It still works the same way. So this is the whole gist of it. Okay, so you create a context, then you create a provider. How creating a provider? This provider takes in some values. Values are going to be important because these values is what I want to be that the after data. Then of course the last bit of it is I'm going to encompass, or rather enclose, this theme context provider in my root. I'm going to now do this. I'm going to put it at the top, okay, of my app. So I go back to my application, to my index on. Most people put their context provider within the app, but I prefer putting it at the index because I think it's easier for me to have it here, because I know that I won't have issues with changing data, especially if I'm changing it within the app. So I usually put it within the index. Okay, so I usually go to the index, then before the app, okay, I simply bring in that context, that provider. Okay, so theme context provider, and of course I put this. Okay, so when you see this diagram here, it's saying that before you actually put the app, This has spot on the top. It's all right. Okay, you can imagine that this is, instead of app is index. So this context here provider has to enclose all the other small components. That's why I went ahead and enclosed the theme context provider. Okay, and I put this up inside that theme context provider. Meaning that now this theme context provider is now available. Now, rather, the context, the theme context is now available within the app. It's a bit confusing when I explain that way, but you know that in our case, this app is now covered, now has access to all the values the theme context provider gives. Okay, you can see like all the values which are these values here are now accessible by the app. Okay, so let's see if there's any change. Should the change here, of course, and of course our words have gone away. Of course, there's no error. There's no error, so don't worry. There's no error. Yeah, there's no error. Yeah, no error. Okay, and that's okay. And if I check back to my components, of course I can see the theme provider. I'm not seeing the app. Okay, because somebody, I think it was, I'm not sure who it was. I think it was someone, I'm not sure who was asking about higher order components. So they use, some extent they use that kind of theology with higher order components. So I need to go back to my theme context provider. In between when I declare the theme context or provider, I need to pass in a prop code, props dot children. So I'm simply saying now all the children within, like everything, these props dot children. Okay, the things which are okay, wait, there are things which are between here. Okay, which are here. So in my case, if I look at here, I'm saying the props dot children. In my case, you can think that what is this app. Okay, so let me just turn out here. All components that will be enclosed, okay, by the theme context provider, okay, like that. Okay, so now if I check again, I think it should be back. It should be back. Yeah, it's back. Okay, my context API is back. Okay, and of course my app now is what? It's okay. Okay, it's back. And if I check my context provider, I'm having value by saying an empty string, and my theme, of course, this doesn't matter because it simply gives birth to this. Okay, there's no difference. Okay, and see the theme context provider has children. The children is called app. Okay, but the theme context provider has the value. Okay, so here now instead of having this value, I can say maybe I want to have some, yeah, I'm having some object. I'm having maybe names. Okay, like that, names. Okay, and maybe the name is an array. Okay, but remember I'm just putting some JavaScript within JSX, so there's no something, it's not kind of new here. So I can say dash from Eric, let's say, comma, let's say Daisy. Okay, assuming I have that. Okay, I have those two names. Now if I check back to my provider, I'm having an array of two names. Okay, now since I have this array of two names, I have access to it everywhere. Okay, within my app dot tsx. Even if I put another component, maybe I put another component, say, sorry, inside here, put a component folder here, components. Okay, we create, maybe I should create add form .tsx. Maybe I have, of course, I use my handy dandy shortcut here, which is RAFCE. Maybe I can have access here. I say maybe I have here some input. Let's say input. input can be others here. Variables for oh weird. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay. Of course, I'm have to update like this. About issues. Okay. So let me move this. Let's show you. Just oh, this looks ugly. Then just a button here. The type of submit. Okay. Type of submit. Submit. Okay. The form will look a bit ugly, but it doesn't matter. What I will just show you an example. Okay. So I come back here. I can bring in the form here, which is the add form. And of course, if you're using VS Code, things will be auto important for you. Okay. So of course, now if I check again, I should be having my ugly some awesome form. Okay. It has nothing. Okay. But now I have access to what? Access to these values here. Okay. These values here. I have access to Eric and Die. Okay. If I how do I access the values? Very simple. I can go back to my, maybe I want to access them within my add form, and I should just access them inside my app. Okay, quite simple, straightforward. You simply go ahead and use what you call the use context hook. Okay, simply come here, just simply say I want to bring in the use context. Although today we just look at the introduction, we're going to look at this in more detail. Okay, so those who are confused about this, don't worry. We're going to have a recap on this and explore it to the fullest. Okay, because we're going to use this context API quite a lot within our application, especially within our GreenMile application. Because I'm going to just maybe do some small part of the GreenMile application. Then, of course, since it's your assignment, it's your project, you're going to have to do it yourself. But I'm going to be helping you out here. So I can come here and do. See if I just bring in the use context hook, it works almost. Okay, it's almost the same way we are using the use state. Okay, you simply say const. Now instead of being an array, since if you look at our team context, it's returning an object. Okay, so of course now I'm going to destructure the object. Okay, by coming here and saying I want to get the names. Okay, rather here I want to get the value of what of names here. Okay, like that. Then I equate it equals to use context like that. Okay, then of course here where's my context here? Of course I bring in names. Did I export? I forgot. You have to export the theme context, so I have to export it here. So I forgot, you have to export the theme context, also export default the theme context provider. Okay, so back to my add form, sorry, back to my app. So app. Okay, then this that is component saying the theme context has to accept a context. Okay, has to accept an object, the value returned from the React. Okay, so I have to come here and pass in the theme context, although the theme provider, I want the theme context. Okay, let's get the provider, then I remove the name here. Why what is not giving me what the actual context? So we go ahead and do this. What issues? Good. So what I've done is I'm saying I'm importing because it's a named import. It's a named import here. It's named theme context. I import the theme context from the slash theme context. Okay. Then of course I equate the const names to equate to use context. Then now these names of course now they're saying any because we simply put here any. But later on we're gonna see we have to first equal the type of values. Okay, make it way better. Now these names here, and I can maybe let's look at the names here. Look at the names. No, actually before we look at the names, it has used the what our okay, it's complaining. Okay, it's okay. Okay, let's use our profile, our components. Okay, if I check on my context provider, I'm having an array of names. Okay, Eric and I. If I check on my app there's nothing there. So app add form. If I check on my app, I should be having the context, having names, okay, Eric and Die, okay, there, okay. So if I maybe change maybe to name, of course you're gonna see the names will be there. If I of course if I click here, okay, let's refresh the page again. Let's refresh, be sure. See if I, okay, the thing is because it's having one value, it doesn't matter, okay. But when you have many values, you have to use the actual, okay, the actual context. Oh, it doesn't matter. Actually, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because the moment I say I don't even need a context here. Okay, the moment I say use context here, it will of course have access to that, to the use context hook. Okay, yeah. But we are simply destructuring out. Okay, so this is destructuring and important. Why am I forgetting? So when we do const names, we are destructuring out the names. Okay, from what? From the theme context. Then we can use them like normally we use them before, like just coming here, maybe saying okay, what is an array of names. Yes, I can do names like that because it's an array. I can say real quick names dot map. I map them real quick. Let me just do real quick a function real quick here. I can start maybe an list. Let's say a paragraph, doesn't matter what you name it. Of course, I want this to be a return statement, so I'll remove this, put here some brackets real quick just to make things just to be faster. And like that. A paragraph, of course, here I can now do item or name. Of course, here text in name. Any. Okay, hopefully show me the two names, okay, without any error. Okay, see, of course there's some error here happening here, which is okay. Okay, the error can be fixed with a key. Put a key here. Yes, for the key to be the index. So what issues here, comma, index. Of course, index has to be any, also has to be a number, hopefully. Sorry, I just put a number here. Okay, so number. So save this. Okay, so you see I'm having now access to, of course, the error has to go away now. Okay. Yeah, not going away. It's alright, you just can refresh the page if you refuse to go away. The error has to go. Okay, good. So you are seeing I'm having access to Eric and Die. I didn't have to go ahead and pass in props, okay? I didn't have to use passing props from app then to add form, okay? You can see if I go back to my app.tsx, rather, if I go back to my app, I didn't have to pass in a prop, okay? And I can have the same, maybe I can have the same kind of structure. Maybe I have another component here. I should have maybe list here. That should be quick, okay? List here, list names, okay? List names, okay? The tsx, okay? So of course I use our handy dandy shortcut like that. So of course I'm going to bring in these two things. I'll just do this. I'll say use context like that. No, yes, so this use context like that to bring in the use context. Then I want to get the theme context like that. Then of course I get that the const names like that equated to the use context. So of course, instead of having it here, this whole thing here, I can just cut it, bring it to the list, and paste it here. Okay, together. So of course now I don't longer I don't even need the props anymore. If you check, if I go back to my app and bring it my list list, so it's called, what is called, list name, list name like that. Okay, I didn't have to bother. Of course I have to move this. What issues here and here. Okay. See, I didn't have to bother with passing props, this props of saying names here. Okay, you have to pass props from there. The props are all the data is coming directly from here. Okay, and if we change the data, okay, we change the data somewhere, all the other components, whether this list, whether the add form, whether the app, if I change the data to be what changed, let me see. Configure cannot change the data. Let me see if I change the data here. What happens? Can it be done here? It can't. You cannot change it here. Okay, can't edit this. But now that this list forms, if I see my app, there's no names, but inside my list names, there's names. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. Although I know some of you are totally confused about it, but it's all right. This is just an introduction. But if you have questions, please, this is the time for you to ask, because for now we just show you an introduction to the context API, but we're going to express more into details and see how we can use it in our application. Yes, so I'm waiting for the questions. Without using the index.tsx. Oh, so the same way I've done this, okay, the same way I've done the index, okay, here. I simply have to go ahead and get this same provider. Let me show it to you real quick here. I simply go ahead and encompass like everything has to be enclosed within the theme context provider like that. I close this, then I bring all the other small applications or the components like that. Okay, same way. There's no difference. Okay, there's no difference. The difference is I personally prefer putting it in the index because it's easier for me to avoid some small errors that arise, especially if I try to use for example, if I try to use the context here, it will not work because this app doesn't have access to it. So same way I've done the index. Just simply put all the small components within the theme context provider. That's all. Okay. Okay. More questions? Please go ahead and ask. Because this is just the beginning. We're going to create a whole application, okay, basing on this, where user will sign in, user can sign out, they have pages which are protected, all that using this context, the context API. So if you have questions, please go ahead and ask, especially on this small thing you have covered. If you have no questions, feel free to leave. But if you have questions, please go ahead and ask.